This is still Signature Morning on Signature TV, and we've had a looming problem. It's been terrible. And yeah, we heard it, voices on the street. I heard the woman who complained that a 100 naira fufu, that's apple, can't feed her baby that she was back in. It's really a problem. And I guess some of them said if they had an opportunity to leave, Charles, they were going to leave immediately without even getting to their house to pack up.
In fact, according to statistics, out of 10 Nigerians, 8 persons that you ask questions about leaving the country would actually want to leave, So we're going to talk about even this further. Let's bring in our guests. Mr. Ame Madaki is an oil and gas expert. Thank you so much for joining us. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Nigerian oil and gas sector is one that has continually been in the front burner in terms of the discourse as relates to what we've been facing since 1960. In the light of what is going on right now, especially as it concerns Dangote's refinery coming on board, at least we can say that in the next few days, the very first oil from that particular refinery will be out. He mentioned between August 8th and 12th. I'm just wondering, what do you think is going on right now?
Well, thank you very much. The Nigerian oil and gas sector has been a very intriguing business for quite some time, and because most Nigerians don't really know what's going on in that sector. Those who are put in charge of running the affairs of the sector, have been digging in and making the sector more and more opaque by the day. And that's why, even though Nigeria has a lot of oil and gas resources, the country has actually not taken the benefit of that resource over the years. And it's very unfortunate, because in the same crude oil and gas that other countries that we reference, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the countries in the Middle East, even Russia, and all of the oil and gas producing countries appear to be doing well apart from Nigeria. And it's so difficult to understand how anybody can run an oil and gas industry at a loss. But NNPC has consistently posted losses. So you'll be wondering where the money is going to. As the country posts losses in the oil and gas sector, the individuals who are operating the industry are getting richer and richer and buying private planes. So it must be that the government is not making money, or rather that whatever money is made from the industry goes into private pockets rather than go into the coffers of the government. And nobody seems to understand, what's going on. So to narrow it down specifically to your question on the Dangote refinery, yes, it was great to have the Dangote refinery, 650,000 barrels a day, single train refinery, the largest single train refinery in the world, located in Nigeria. But I think that there was a challenge right from the beginning. At the inception of that project, the key thing that should have bothered the owners of the project, the Dangote conglomerate, should have been where they will get the feedstock, of the crude oil from to refine. Because, Nigeria's production has continuously been going down, all manner of excuses, crude oil theft, failing equipment, aging pipelines and all that. But in the midst of all that, we have a potential to produce up to 4 million barrels a day, but we are barely producing 1.2 million barrels a day, out of which the international oil companies that are in joint venture with the federal government are entitled to, on the average, about 50% of that production. So if you take 600,000 barrels, which is equity crude for the IOCs, out of it, then the other 50% is what it becomes available as Nigeria's own share of the equity crude. And so out of that 600,000 barrels, there has been a lot of forward sales, because we keep borrowing money on and on and on. We don't know what we do with the money. But every single time they keep borrowing money on oil production. So, as it is right now, the country doesn't even have any crude oil to sell to anybody because they have sold most of it up front and collected the money, on business terms that were very laughable. How people could put their signatures to such agreements, which sold off Nigeria's crude up front, and collected peanuts for it, and they'll be still paying, and they'll keep paying for it, on and on and on. We collected $3 billion, from Afro-Exim Bank, to pay back $12 billion over a period of time. Nobody borrows money on those kind of terms. But again, so now there's no crude to give to supply to Dangote, and everybody is crying. You can't ask the international oil companies to seed their own equity crude and give it to Dangote, because that's equity crude that they have already worked for, and it's part of what they are entitled to take because they are in a joint venture with the government. So what I would have expected Dangote to do upfront was to think of where the crude was going to come from and not make a big issue out of it, as he's trying to do at the moment.
So you're saying he's making a big issue out of it. This is nothing to do with the government trying to frustrate him.
No, definitely not. It was poor planning on his part from the beginning. If I was going to set up a 650,000 barrels a day refinery, I would definitely worry more about where the feedstock will come from. And it was very easy for him. If the refinery is worth the $20 billion he claims that it is, it should have been easy for him to spend a small fraction of that acquiring oil fields that would then produce the crude that he would refine. Just imagine, just to give you an example, Shell, with all its footprint across the Niger Delta, is selling all of its onshore and shallow offshore assets. The best bid they have gotten for it, from Renaissance is $1.4 billion US. If Dangote is setting up a $20 billion refinery, it should have been easy for Dangote to make a bid for the Shell onshore and shallow offshore assets, which, if they took entire control of it, would have been more than enough if they ramp up production to be able to supply, the feedstock needed to keep his refinery working 24/7. So all of this noise about we can't get crude, they're trying to sabotage us, we're the first to set up a refinery, even though many people were licensed. All those are monopolistic conversations. In the real world of business, it is dog eat dog, shark eat shark. You get the point? So if you want to make money, you have to keep your eye on where the profit is going to come from. Not expecting somebody to throw a feeding bottle at you and you'll be sucking at it all the time, just to make money, to make easy money. I think that is the first time Dangote is about to make hard money by working for it. Okay. So instead of crying like a baby, he should just sit up and do what is right, by, debottlenecking all the challenges around his business. And now I think it's too late, because the investment is already on ground. And I think that whoever put the business plan in place from the beginning without clearly identifying where the feedstock, for the refinery will come from, in a seamless manner, honestly ought to be called back to question.
Okay.
And whatever consultancy
Chief Madaki
should be responded.
Chief Madaki, I hear you, but we also, so you're saying is not as a result of bad blood from the government. So what do you think effects on existing local refineries and small players? What do you think the effect of what Dangote refinery brings to these people?
Generally, as they say, when something is happening to your neighbor, you should learn your lesson. So what you're saying, in fact, is that people like Bua and the other modular refineries that are about to come up will now be a bit wary and saying, well, if it's happening to Dangote the giant, who are we? I don't think it's going to operate exactly that way, because everybody has his own unique business plan. To start with, I think the location of Dangote refinery was wrong from the beginning. You can't, there's hardly any oil production going on in Lagos. And then you go and locate such a massive refinery in faraway Lagos, where you have to be worrying about the logistics of trucking, or piping or barging crude oil, the crude to the place. You get the point? It would have been better located in the Niger Delta, but I can understand his reputation at that time. Maybe because of the instability in the Niger Delta and the fact that, things can erupt rather quickly. He wanted a safe haven where he could put his investment with the least risks. But these things don't work that way. You know what I mean? There's no way, even in Palestine, with all the bombs dropping, I'm sure people are still investing there. You have to just make your investment analysis properly and then and position your business, in a place where you can get the maximum advantage. I really don't think it will dampen the result of other people who want to invest in the refinery business. Refining is good, it's an international business, and again, if you have a refinery, you should be able to buy crude from anywhere. So all this talk about we are now importing crude oil from other countries is not a big deal, provided the price at which it lands in the refinery makes sense and they can refine profitably. The business is still a lucrative business. And I think that what ought to happen, is a situation where the government regulator, that is the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, should put their feet down and properly regulate that industry. I think it was grossly irresponsible for Dangote and his Indian managing director to make the sort of blatant allegations they made against the regulator.
How so?
They are subject to. You don't open your mouth and say that the regulator is licensing marketers to bring in adulterated diesel and other products without being able to prove it. Now they're on the hot spot, and everybody has turned the heat on them. It was a very anti-competitive comment. It was a comment that was completely unnecessary at the time it was made, and it could have actually led to a conflagration in the country and some complicated lawsuits, class lawsuits, because the citizen can actually go to court relying on that comment to say that the government deliberately wants to kill them, by spreading cancer. And those kind of cases will succeed, because nobody knows what the impact will be 10, 20, 30 years from now. If carcinogenic petroleum products are imported with the active collusion of a government regulator, that's the extent of the severity of that allegation. And I think that, I've said it in a few fora that, in a country where the laws operate properly, that managing director should have been on the plane going outside of the country.
Okay. So, Chief Madaki, I hear you're saying that Dangote calculated $20 billion and, didn't plan well. Now, what's the impact of Dangote's operation on fuel subsidy program?
Well, I don't think there's any fuel subsidy in this country. It's a scam. We cannot say we are subsidizing anything right now. That money is entering people's private pockets. And I will tell you why. The cost of production of a barrel of crude is so far different from the cost, the market price of crude. If you are an oil-producing country as we have no business indexing the price of our products at the pump on the international price of crude. It's just like saying that somebody who is farming yams in Nigeria will be pricing the yam he gives to his wife to cook for his family on the strength of the price of yam in New York or in London. If you do that, you will not be able to feed your family. So what we should be doing is that the portion of crude oil that is used for local consumption should be priced at the cost at the wellhead. And no matter how inefficiently we produce crude, and we are very inefficient here, I can assure you, but no matter how inefficiently we produce crude, the cost at the pump, at the wellhead should not be more than $10. No matter how hard we try to pad the price. You get the point? So we produce at $10, the market is prepared to pay close to $100, sometimes more than $100 for the same product. It's supposed to be an upside. But Nigeria is the only country where when the price of crude oil goes up, everybody starts crying that the price of the product at the pump will also go up in tandem. Why should it be so when we produce the crude here? It's just like we produce crude water. And then, because the process of producing crude oil and crude water is actually the same. It's the same drilling down, and then you reach the aquifer for water. You know that the crude oil is a bit deeper underground, than where you reach, for water. You get the point. So why would somebody who is bringing water out from his borehole, be pricing it at the international price for water, if there is such a price? So it's very shameful economics, and I can't even understand why we allow this kind of economics to happen. You get the point? In a country where people are supposed to be educated.
Right.
And annoyingly, the president goes and reappoints the entire board of NMPC recently. As if, yes, you guys are doing a fantastic job. Doing a fantastic job in a country where they were posting losses on a daily basis, when other countries are taking advantage of the increasing price of crude oil, and then we're not making any money and we're borrowing. In another short, period, this country will be defaulting on loans because what we earn is far less than what we are using to service our debt. So how are we going to survive as a country going forward? That's why everybody's running away.
All right.
All young people want to leave the country right now. And I think it's very shameful, actually.
Yeah, Mr. Madaki, I really want to ask you this because a whole lot of talk about Dangote refinery bringing some sanity into the system. Do you think that Dangote's refineries would, in one way than one, make the government become serious about the 4 refineries that is under its coffers?
Well, for too long, those refineries have either been refurbished or are in the process of being refurbished. Every minister of petroleum that comes, sets a new target for when the refineries will work. We have been rolling around the politics of getting the refinery to function, as if refining crude oil is rocket science. I find it extremely shameful that for so many years we are still talking around whether those 4 refineries, 2 in Port Harcourt, 1 in Warri, and 1 in Kaduna will ever function. As far as I'm concerned, from a technology perspective, we are probably better off scrapping those refineries and building new ones. Because they have never functioned. They are always being turned around, and only to be turned around again. You get the point? Yes, it was good that Dangote put in place a 650 million, 650,000 barrels a day refinery, and it's functioning. But the impact of Dangote's products on the Nigerian market is yet to be felt properly. For many reasons. First of all, one of the advantages of setting up a refinery is actually the employment generation that is supposed to come from the setting up of such a massive project. But you and I know that most of the people who work in Dangote refinery are Indians. Maybe because the managing director of the company is an Indian, and he brought a lot of his own people to come and work. I'm aware, from figures that have been made available, that up to 11,000 Indians are working in Dangote refinery. But the Nigerians that are working there are just about 4,000 or 5,000 people. If you even add the casual hands. That's not right. Because at the end of the day, whether we like it or not, these 4 refineries, Kaduna and 1 in Warri, have a lot of staff who already understand the refining process. Why wouldn't Dangote employ a lot of those people who are redundant right now and are just earning salaries? That is for those who have not been fired, are earning salaries for doing nothing. They should just move them there, giving them the best possible training, and then transfer technology in a way that our people will then even hone in their skills even more, and then train more of the young chemical engineers, petroleum engineers who are around now cannot even find any job in the industry because most of the IOCs are quitting and downsizing or divesting completely. These are the kind of multiplier effects one would have expected to see from a Dangote refinery, but I'm not seeing it. And nobody, if any other person is seeing it, by all means, I want to see, I want to be told. I heard, that part of the reason why they employ so many Indians is that, they say that Nigerians are not reliable and they are not serious at the place of work and they are not honest. But that's very shameful. I hope that didn't come as an official comment from from Dangote as a company, because that would be totally laughable. I don't see how anybody should run down his own countrymen just because he wants to prove a point. I don't think Indians are more honest than Nigerians any day. So yes, it's good to see the local content part of the project. It's good to also see whether there will be multiplier effects in the Nigerian economy from the Dangote refinery. But honestly, from the way I see it right now, the impact will be extremely minimal. We are still importing, PMS, and Dangote has been producing PMS. It's just that he has not put it on the Nigerian market. And I don't think that's fair. You get the point?
Right.
Because,
Let's talk about modular refineries.
Sorry?
Let's talk about modular refineries, the ones that we know that BUA is getting into, and some other persons are also looking to invest in that direction. Now Dangote's refinery is going to be on board pretty soon, especially now that we know that there are meetings to tick the I's and dot the T's. I'm just thinking, if we have more refineries, more modular refineries, do you think it will solve the problem of at least bringing the prices of the fuel down?
No, I don't think so. Because first of all, they will still have problem of feedstock. There's no crude. So unless they deal with the issue of crude supply, the challenge will still be there. You build a refinery and you do not have the crude oil to refine, then you have a problem. Many of them do not have the muscle required to import crude from other countries because the logistics are a bit complicated. So yes, it's good to have refineries. For instance, a country like Singapore does not produce a single barrel of crude oil, but they have over 50 refineries in Singapore.
Wow.
But they have also been able to deal with the issue of the supply of products. They buy cheap from us, from countries like Nigeria and other countries. You buy crude oil cheap, and then you refine, and then you make several times, the money that you spent on the crude. But those are countries where they got the economics of their production properly. You get the point? And that the government is regulating and, doing what is effective, at that policy formulation level. But in Nigeria, anything goes. There are no consequences for poor performance or complete lack of performance. Everybody's just gallivanting from point to point, and then we don't see anything. And nobody gets punished for even defrauding the country, from decisions they took, from out of which the country lost money.
Okay, I want to ask you, sir. Hello, sir. So I would like to ask you, Madaki, implications of a broader future of Nigeria's oil and gas industry. What are the implications on a broader horizon?
Well, I think that the industry will right size. With the IOCs exiting, there will be more of local content, Nigerian content, because most of the people who are behind the consortia, bidding for the stakes of the IOCs, like the Shell, the Total Energies of this world, the people who are exiting, most of them are people who already acquired skills in running the industry from the IOCs. So I see a future that is bright. I see a future that is now going to be more realistic and with better regulation. And in fact, with NNPC being removed completely from perceiving itself as a regulator rather than an operator, we are going to get to a point where the industry should become profitable. But to be able to do that, we have to have a government that knows exactly what is going on. Right now, the industry is being run by politicians. You get the point? Who are not technocrats in this area and who do not really understand the nitty-gritty. It's one thing to be a minister of petroleum, but it's quite another to know what's going on in the industry. And quite frankly, if you look at the constitution of that industry in terms of management right now, you do not have the sort of quality knowledge that is required to drive change.
So what do you advise? What do you advise? What's your advice?
Yeah, what I advise is that, I think the president has worked in an oil and gas company before, Mobil. So I expect that he should translate that, whatever experience he gained from there, into the way the industry, into taking more interest in the way the industry is run. Incidentally, he's on record, the Minister of Petroleum, but we haven't seen anything that he has done in that regard. We haven't seen the benefit of his experience having worked in Mobil, in the way the industry is managed right now. So if we see a more structured approach towards the running of the industry, putting square pegs in square holes, and ensuring that those who have the right skills, and there are many of them in the country, are the ones actually running the industry, then we'll begin to see some benefit. Otherwise, we may as well start thinking more of making money from agriculture, from solid minerals and so on, because I actually think that the emphasis on crude oil, and gas is misplaced, because we're not making money from there. The industry is a loss-making industry right now to the country, and NNPC has been posting losses consistently for years. So why would you keep, such a behemoth when you actually disintegrate it, and let everybody, go their different ways, and then that you don't have a business. But right now, that business is just a facade. There's no money being made from it, and it's totally shameful. So,
all right, sir.
The outlook, the outlook will brighten when the government takes more charge of the way, the industry is run. But I think because the government borrows money and there's easy money to spend, they are not really trying to sweat the assets and ensure that what we have produces for us what it should produce. I think that's why we are still where we are today.
Wow. Mr. Ahmed Madaki, many thanks for your input today. We truly, really appreciate your input, even though for me, most of it were bleak reality of our oil and gas sector. Many thanks, sir.
Yeah, we don't have a choice. We have to say it is. There's no point sugarcoating this thing, and creating the impression that all is well when we all know that all is not well. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. And I wish Signature TV the very best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Phenomenal. Thank you.
Thank you. We're back shortly after this break. Do stay with us.